God is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with power, justice, and truth. Our God is a mighty God. Our God is a mighty
God! All right, it is Friday, June 19th, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful. Tonight we lead with major updates on the U.S.-Iran agreement, election integrity efforts, a foiled terror plot with high-profile targets, and several other key developments. Let's begin with the Middle East. Let's see. President Trump and the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, have signed a 14-point memorandum of understanding, also called the Islamabad Memorandum. The agreement was finalized electronically around June 17th, with Trump signing during the G7 meetings in France at the Palace of Versailles. Pakistan mediated. So do they just send each other like a one of those electronic DocuSign? I mean, is that how peace agreements are done these days? You get a DocuSign. Hey, we agree to no nuclear weapons. DocuSign. Can I get an email of that, please? It establishes a 60-day framework. God, I love that number because that puts us right at the eclipse, the August 12th eclipse, which is it fits the pattern of one of the seals opening up. It's either going to be seal number 5 or seal number 6. I can't wait to see what happens. It establishes a 60-day framework for further negotiations on a final deal. Core elements include an extended ceasefire, Iran reopening the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping, toll-free for 60 days, and the U.S. lifting its naval blockade along with certain sanctions and oil export waivers. Reconstruction and investment framework is referenced with reports of a potential $300 billion private fund tied to compliance. The deal does not fully resolve Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missiles, or regional proxies. Those issues are deferred to the 60-day talks. Would it be interesting if those are when they say peace and safety? We know it's coming. Pretty sure it's coming. We still got Ezekiel 39 to get through. There's some interesting things in Ezekiel 39. Yeah. Shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has already resumed, according to marine data. President Trump posted on Truth Social that oil is flowing. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and prices are dropping. Public reaction and polling. According to a new Qantas poll, it shows 56% of likely voters approve of the preliminary agreement, with 43% strongly approving and only 13% disapproving. President Trump has pushed back hard on bipartisan critics who called the deal too soft. He stated that those who think he has not been tough enough on Iran, while the stock market hits record highs and oil prices tumble, are either jealous, bad people, or stupid. And I would add that no matter what happens, we know this is in God's hands. All of it is in God's hands, working towards his end. So regardless of if we get a deal, don't get a deal, it's all culminating according to God's timeline. Some Republican senators, including Ted Cruz and Bill Cassidy, have voiced strong concerns about the terms and any potential reconstruction funding. Senate Democrats have also criticized the agreement. Moving over to France, France hosted the signing event and is now pushing for a major role in the follow-on nuclear and sanction talks. French officials have signaled they could use veto power in the UN Security Council if they do not see sufficient concessions from Iran on missiles and proxies. Israel was not a party to the agreement, obviously, and is not bound by it. Prime Minister Netanyahu has stated that the IDF forces will maintain a security zone in southern Lebanon as long as needed to protect northern Israel from Hezbollah threats. Israeli strikes in the area continue. Planned technical talks in Switzerland, set for today, have been postponed. Iran cited Israel's ongoing operations in Lebanon. The U.S. says it remains ready to proceed when the conditions allow. Vice President J.D. Vance has been scheduled to participate. Iran's supreme leader issued a cautious message approving the memorandum while framing it as a test of U.S. intentions. Of course it's a test. He emphasized deep distrust. By who? You what? He emphasized deep distrust. No change in core position on the resistance front, and that future talks will be on Iran's terms. Oh, brother. Iranian negotiator Mohammad Marandi stated that Iran will not implement the Memorandum of Understanding under the current conditions, pointing to U.S. and Israeli actions in Lebanon. There are 6 Americans remain wrongfully detained in Iran. At least 2 are held in Evin prison. One is Kamran Hekmati, a 61-year-old Jewish Iranian-American grandfather from Long Island. He was arrested last spring while visiting family and charged over a trip to Israel more than a decade ago for his son's bar mitzvah. He is battling bladder cancer without adequate medical care. Another is Reza Valizada, a 49-year-old journalist who worked for Radio Free Europe. He returned to Iran in 2024 to care for his parents. Fox News obtained audio of him from inside the Evin prison pleading for an end to physical pressure and mental torture. Secretary of State Marco Rubio designated Iran a state sponsor of wrongful detention. The administration has released more than 60 captured Iranian sailors earlier without a direct reciprocal deal. Families and advocates are urging that hostage release become a priority in ongoing diplomacy. Hostage issues are being pursued on a separate track from the current ceasefire framework. Moving on to election integrity and the Save America Act. The House passed Save America Act, which requires proof of citizenship for federal voter registration and photo ID to vote. It's remained stalled in the Senate, though. Reports indicate that during a closed-door Senate Republican meeting, some GOP senators expressed strong opposition to using the talking filibuster to advance the bill. Majority Leader John Thune's office has denied specific claims, but the legislation has not moved forward. Senator Mike Lee has been a leading advocate for forcing action on the measure. FBI agents conducted a major operation on Skid Row in Los Angeles as part of a voter fraud probe. Plainclothes agents interviewed residents following videos and claims that homeless individuals were paid small amounts of cash to register, forge signatures, and vote in the June 2nd primary for candidates including Mayor Karen Bass and Councilwoman Nithya Raman. The Department of Justice confirmed a criminal investigation. FBI Director Kash Patel stated that anyone who interferes with elections will be found. Reports indicate thousands of homeless voters were registered at shelters, including more than 1,160 at one Skid Row mission alone. Federal authorities have charged 5 men in a foiled plot to attack the UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House. 18 others remain wanted. The alleged ringleader, Abraham Hermosillo Alvarez, a Mexican national who entered the U.S. as a child on a B-2 visa that expired in 2001. He remained illegally and received DACA relief in 2014 under the Obama administration. He was arrested in Omaha. Other charged individuals include a 19-year-old Tyson Proper of Danville, Ohio. Proper's mother contacted authorities out of concern over his recent gun and ammunition purchases, tactical gear, online activity in a Christian extremist group, posts sympathetic to Hitler, and talk of hit-and-run missions. She removed firearms from the home and followed up with detailed emails. Prosecutors have credited her tip with playing a major role in disrupting the plot. Good for her. The group planned to use explosive-carrying drones to create chaos at the event, followed by snipers targeting high-value individuals among those evacuating. Targeted individuals reportedly included pro-Israeli members of Congress linked to AIPAC, West Virginia officials such as Senator Shelley Moore Capito and Jim Justice, Representatives Carol Miller and Riley Moore, State Delegate Tristan Levitt. Levitt learned of his inclusion through a reporter and described the situation as chilling. The plot materials also reference President Trump, Vice President Vance, Elon Musk, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Investigators describe the 23-person network as driven by anti-government extremism, accelerationism aimed at sparking revolution or collapse, anti-Semitism, and conspiracy theories involving elites and satanic themes. Moving on to the Supreme Court and the unanimous gun ruling. In a rare 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court struck down a federal law that automatically stripped Second Amendment rights from individuals deemed unlawful drug users, including marijuana users. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote that the government cannot simply assume every marijuana user is categorically violent and dangerous and disarm them on that basis alone. The ruling is narrow and leaves room to disarm those who are genuinely dangerous or addicts. Both the NRA and the ACLU welcomed the decision. And in other developments, federal investigators are examining Gavin Newsom and his wife. Democrats are expressing concern that the probe, which reportedly began under the prior administration with California whistleblower claims, could impact Newsom's potential 2028 presidential run. The Obama Presidential Center opened in Chicago this week amid reports that subcontractors remain unpaid millions of dollars, including one plumbing business owed nearly $4 million. Yikes. Bill Pulte, currently head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, has assumed the role of acting director of national intelligence. He has no prior intelligence background and has been directed to downsize the office of the director of national intelligence. He reportedly requested employee lists for potential reductions. The administration is accelerating efforts to reduce the footprint of the Department of Education. Special education programs are shifting to Health and Human Services, and civil rights enforcement in schools is moving to the Department of Justice. Education Secretary Linda McMahon has described the department as largely a pass-through for funds and emphasized returning more control to the states. And in closing, that covers up tonight's top stories. Thank you for watching this. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to talk about these things further, please put them in the comments or the chat tonight, and we'll talk about those things. In the meantime, let's go over to our daily Torment report, where we cover the posts and the prophecies of the two men who are tormenting the world the most by speaking the truth on their very own global platforms, Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Through trials faced, through testing days, you've kept my word, walked in my ways. Though strength was small, you held your ground. The door I've opened cannot be bound. They turned away, they closed their eyes, but I have written what none denies. Through fleeting fear and fleeting shame, you stood for truth, upheld my name. Hold fast, your crown is sure. The door I've opened will stand secure. A pillar raised in the temple of my God, forever sealed, forever strong.
right. Picking it up with Donald Trump. We start off with the UFC 250. Man, if this has audio in it, it's going to copyright issues. YouTube is extremely strict when it comes to music and videos.
UFC fans have traveled far and wide across the United States and
Yeah, you guys remember the national anthem that I played from the UFC 250 with the beautiful flyover and stuff like that? They took down the entire video because of that little tiny segment. Now, I could cut that segment out and they put the video back up, but I'm arguing that it is fair use in the public domain and that we're not claiming ownership or originality of the music, but, are commenting on it and changing it substantially. But it takes 30 days for them to make a decision on if they'll allow it or not. So YouTube ain't messing around, guys.
around the globe, all to witness history and be a part of this uniquely special mixed martial arts show.
And it's not always the copyright holders. It's actually YouTube that enforces this. They have bots that go through and monitor all your streams. They monitor the live feed for certain things that aren't allowed, and then they go through and then they review the saved video for things that they want to get you for.
Case that is UFC Freedom 250.
Freedom at the White House on Donald Trump's birthday. What an event.
Welcome to UFC Freedom 2.
Anyway, that's probably enough. I'm afraid they're going to take the show down if I play too much of it. Well, that was beautiful. There you go. All right, moving on. No, I lived in South Carolina for a while. I love the wonderful state of South Carolina for every reason in the book, including the fact that it is loaded up with truly great people and political leaders. There are two highly respected candidates running to be your next governor in the June 23rd Republican runoff election. Your current Lieutenant Governor, Pam Evitt, and your current Attorney General, Alan Wilson. Both have had amazing careers and have been with me from the very beginning. They are MAGA and America First all the way. These are the two that I was hoping would get into the runoff, and they did. I can't hurt one of them by only endorsing the other, so therefore I'm going to endorse for governor of South Carolina both Pam Evitt and Alan Wilson. It's a wealth of riches. With either one, you cannot go wrong. Vote for Pam or Alan. They will not let you down. President Donald J. Trump. Yeah. Fury says, by 30 days, it will no longer be relevant. Push it to Rumble instead and cut it on YouTube. Yeah, fair point. Probably easy. Honestly, it's probably half the time I use so they give you like 5 or 6 options, and sometimes they vary depending on the content. This one, they only gave me 2 options: to dispute or erase. And I opted to dispute because I liked the song so much. And it was so well sung. But you're probably right. Usually I just choose to erase the song because YouTube can actually go in and just delete the music portion that's, offending. But I did really like that rendition. I think we ended up cutting out the segment of that show and then reposted it a couple days ago. So it's really only the news and the the Torment report that is most offensive to YouTube. All right, very popular agreement except for the fake news and their partner, the Democrats. Q5, the U.S. and Iran recently announced a preliminary agreement to stop hostilities, reopen shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and begin 60 days of talks on Iran's nuclear program and sanctions. Do you approve or disapprove of this agreement? I approve of it just because I like the 60 days. Puts us right at the opening of a seal, and we get to see God work. Senator Lindsey Graham is working incredibly hard for the great people of South Carolina, a state I love and won big in 2016, 2020, and 2024. That's an endorsement. We don't need to read all that. Lindsey Graham completely agree with President Trump's analysis that Iran's capabilities to generate another October 7 or continue to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism on the planet has been massively degraded. To those who say Iran is stronger now than before, that is an insult to the American military, and it is delusional thinking because the Iranian economy is in shambles. Mr. President, continue to try to find a diplomatic solution to Iran's nuclear ambitions and other issues that have plagued the world since 1979. The day diplomacy is off the table will present America and our allies with some very stark choices. In the meantime, as we pursue diplomacy, make it crystal clear that Israel will not have to tolerate being attacked by Iranian proxies who cause parts of Israel to be uninhabitable. In response to Donald Trump, the war has diminished Iran. It doesn't any longer have an air force, navy, anti-aircraft equipment, radar, or practically anything else. And yet the Democrats say that Iran is better off now than it was 4 months ago. Can you imagine getting away with that? How stupid can some people be? Yeah, we didn't meet out of desperation. Iran did. They are finished. We'll play out the 60 days. They get no money, not 10 cents. Let's see. The war has diminished Iran. It doesn't any longer have an air force, a navy. Okay, we already read that. Nope. Not playing no audio. Just a patriotic video. You'll have to go watch that yourself. I'm going to try and not get this one copyrighted. All right, what do we got here from Fox News? Probably not going to watch this whole thing. It's 14 minutes.
An immediate effect. Both sides have signed. Trump did it over lobster and caviar at Versailles, and the gay Ayatollah had his number 2 use an auto pen. So, one day in, how's it looking?
I think the president's peace plan in Iran is already bearing real fruits for the American people. Last night, 12.5 million barrels of oil went through the Strait of Hormuz. That is a high since the beginning of the conflict. On the military side, the Iranians, for the second night in a row, did not shoot at any ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
CENTCOM lifted the blockade, and the first ships to set sail were 3 Saudi supertankers. The price of oil is now in the 70s, same as it was before the war. And gas just fell under $4 a gallon. POTUS said, told you so.
I just do want to say, though, the stock market just hit a new all-time high. The 401ks just hit a new all-time high. And oil is dropping like a rock. Other than that, it's another day in paradise.
It could be paradise for Iran, too, just without the virgins. If they behave and follow through on the deal, we'll open Iran for business.
There is a great desire from the Arab world and from outside the Arab world to actually get involved in Iran if they behave properly. If you behave, and if the Emiratis themselves want to build a power plant, then we will do the sanctions relief necessary to make that possible. A world where the Gulf Coast Coalition has greater leverage into the Iranian economy is a world where the Iranians are going to be heavily prevented from misbehaving.
There's a big brouhaha brewing in Washington over Iran getting money. Remember, we control the money. They're like a kid. If they screw around, they don't get an allowance. It's the exact opposite of the Obama deal, where we paid them to build missiles and enrich.
The Obama nuclear deal allowed enrichment. Ours will not. The Obama deal allowed the accumulation of stockpiled weapons-grade material. Ours is actually leading to the destruction of that stockpile of enriched material. So there are many differences. The Obama deal gave them over $1 billion of American money. This deal gives them $0 of American money.
The way the deal's structured is if Iran holds up their end of the bargain, they don't get American money. They get Arab money. And we decide what they can build with it. And we can see what they're doing with it after they get it. But they don't get anything until they blow up the dust. And this just in. Witkoff just briefed Congress that Iran's inviting the International Atomic Energy Agency to come inspect its nuclear sites and uncover the enriched material. This is big. The Iranians have also agreed that U.S. nuclear inspectors would be allowed into the country. That's huge. On day one, we're already getting somewhere, hopefully. These are good signs. But it's not about words. It's about action.
I've seen skeptics of the deal. People say the Iranians will never change their behavior. Well, maybe that's true. And if so, they don't get any of the benefits of the bargain. But isn't it worth trying? Isn't it worth seeing whether this incredibly weakened position that the President of the United States has put the Iranians under, whether that motivates them to change their behavior?
The Iranians are dealing with $1 trillion of damage. We sunk their Navy, Air Force, and 50 leaders. And we wiped out thousands of factories. And they are in a deep, deep depression. They have to rebuild their country before they can even think about rebuilding a nuke program. And if they start rebuilding their nuke program, they won't get any money to rebuild their country. If Space Force even sees a man on a camel wander anywhere near one of their 3 nuke sites, sanctions back and a love tap.
Let's say 2 years down the road, they've done what we need to see on the nuclear program, and we release the sanctions as the deal contemplates. Then they decide they're going to start rebuilding the nuclear program. Then, of course, those sanctions are going to come back on. And that's why it's really kind of like a dial. As they dial up their good behavior, we can dial up the economic relief. If they dial down their good behavior, we can turn it off.
People are all saying, well, what about the Strait? In 60 days, the deal leaves it open for Iran to toll. JD says, wrong again.
When you say it leaves it open, it doesn't really leave it open, except in the sense that, of course, the final negotiation is going to set the terms of what comes afterwards. The Omanis, the Iranians, and the Gulf Coast Coalition together will figure out a proper security framework for the Straits in the future. And what I mean by that is that we don't ever want this to happen again. That's not about tolling. That's about ensuring that the Straits are never used as a choke point for the global economy ever again.
The deal won't allow tolls. If some Persian swashbuckler shows up rattling a tin can, the Navy rolls up and we close their banks.
When the blockade opens fully, we'll step back and allow commerce to flow. But if Iran doesn't comply, then we're more than able to reimpose an ironclad blockade.
Remember, Iran suffered a painful and humiliating defeat. They've been living...
That's probably good. 5 minutes in, still got 10 minutes left. Continue on with Trump's posts. We didn't meet out of desperation. Iran did. They're finished. We already read that one. The war has diminished Iran. It doesn't any longer... Okay, we already read that one too. Jeez, how many duplicates do we have?
You're America's first defenders. You are America's first responders. You are the living standard bearers of America's first fleet. As your commander-in-chief, I could not be prouder of the great class of 2026. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And I'd have no doubt to say, and just like those Coast Guard legends who came before you, you will always put America first. We put America first now.
Yep. This one seems different.
Well, everyone has worked and studied hard. Some may have spent a little bit too much time at a place called Mr. G's. I don't know what Mr. G's is. I don't know what it is, but I don't like the sound of this. I'm not... Where am I going with this one? But we want you all to have a clean slate as you begin your careers. So, therefore, Mr. Superintendent, I hereby absolve all cadets who are on restriction for minor conduct infractions and even somewhat major infractions, effective immediately. Okay? You guys, you got away with murder. I was just in a good mood. I was in a very good mood to do that.
I don't know what that means, but I guess it's probably good. And turn that off just in case that one's copyright. I'm sure it is. All right, what we got here? 30 seconds. We can watch that.
All because the
surprised.
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all because the bottom line is this. Donald Trump is the general of the Republican Party, and the Republican primary voters are his soldiers. And if you look at Thomas Massie, you can see it very clearly. You look in 2020, 2022, 2024, he was getting 75%, upwards of 81% of the primary vote in 2020. And today, he gets less than 50% of the vote. That's the story.
That is incredible because you look at it so consistent time after time after time. And then, wow, look at tonight. Donald Trump, thank you.
Okie doke. There's just a ton of videos today.
Here is the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
President Trump, Dana White. This is what he pinned. I think this is what he pinned.
UFC fans have...
Yeah, that's what he pinned. What's this? Building the arena. Very cool. Nope. So many things I have to block. Trump's been playing with AI again. Filling it with liberal tears. Oh, man. That was pretty.
Grip better.
Oh, my God.
And the fireworks are playing.
We don't see a lot of drone shows. I'm hoping this year for the 4th of July that somebody puts on like a drone show like they've been doing in other countries for years. You know, where they can actually draw the shapes and stuff like that. I really want to see one of those. All right. Democrats are better at one thing than the Republicans: cheating. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, Mega Warrior Mike Modsey. Okay, these are endorsements. Anybody who doesn't want to terminate the filibuster is a fool, a very stupid one at that. The Democrats will end it within. Did we read this yesterday? Yeah, we read that yesterday. I think we're done with his posts. Yep. All right, moving on to Elon Musk. See what he has to say today. Let's see, from Al Smith. Well, it worked with Charlie Kirk. Don't know what the context is on that. Many left-wing figures in the U.S., as in Europe, label Musk as far-right. Some even go as far as to say Nazi. I did the opposite of the accusation. Read before judging. 2 biographies, dozens of hours of interviews and documentaries. The reason they call me a Nazi is to encourage people to murder me. That's one of the attributes of the 2 witnesses. There are attempts on his life. He's just not public about it, and they're not as publicized as the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. They said, well, it worked with Charlie Kirk, didn't it? Indeed. Man. He's got to be at a whole other level. Being the world's first trillionaire. Does he have an entire military like backing him? Is his security greater than or less than the Secret Service, I wonder? Or is it actually the Secret Service? Interesting. Tulsi Gabbard released hundreds of pages of previously undisclosed communications that revealed Dr. Anthony Fauci steered the intelligence community away from investigating U.S.-funded coronavirus research in China that may have caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course he did. Everybody knows that. He's guilty as he can be. Just listening to his testimony before Congress was ridiculous. On her way out, Tulsi Gabbard dropped bombshell documents proving Dr. Fauci colluded with a politicized intel community to bury the lab leak truth and lie to Congress. I've referred him to the Department of Justice multiple times for prosecution. The evidence keeps mounting, but more will be coming soon. Yep. From Kangman Lee, Hasman Gold read the entire UK rape gang report. live to hundreds of thousands of viewers on a 7-hour stream. I didn't watch that. I don't got 7 hours to give Asmongold. Single-handedly, he has done more to expose the grooming gangs and protect vulnerable girls than the entire modern feminist movement combined. Elon Musk says in the future, $1 trillion times $1 trillion will be spent on making antimatter to travel to other star systems. Okay. Things won't be measured in dollars then, just mass and energy. Possibly. Minimum age of 11 set for UK puberty blockers trial. Oh, really? So let me get this straight. In the UK, a 15-year-old can't be trusted with social media, but an 11-year-old can be trusted to make life-altering medical decisions that could leave them infertile for life. To protect the children, of course. Let's see what she's got to say.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath, he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins. Once again, revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth. Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume 3 key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to Big Pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr. Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available. Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations. He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts, while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID. Yeah. Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks. For example, a contractor was terminated just days after coming forward to ODNI as a whistleblower. Another example, those who advocated for the lab leak hypothesis or expressed dissenting views were reminded by their managers that leadership would determine which analysts would be promoted and which would not. The message was clear: go along or be punished. Senior leaders also sought to undermine whistleblowers by removing anonymity, which is required in the whistleblower process, as they made their complaints, and also insisting that their managers or attorneys be present during ODNI meetings where these whistleblowers were coming forward with their testimony, obviously creating an atmosphere of intimidation. The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. Now, after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized, self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. Yep. It's time you know the truth.
Wow. Yeah, it is about time we know the truth. We've been begging for it. Better yet, like to see somebody in prison for that whole COVID debacle. What Elon built: XAI, Neuralink, Starlink, SpaceX, Tesla. What Bernie built: tax proposal, regulation, committee, oversight board, seizure order.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci...
We'll just keep going. Important announcement: puberty blockers judicial review. Following months of radio silence, I'm saddened to report that the government has announced that it is pushing forward with the puberty blockers trial, regardless of the significant ethical concerns raised that led to the temporary pause. Most troubling of all is the way they are now refusing to halt recruitment of children until the end of the judicial review that we are bringing. As such, we have no choice but to seek an emergency injunction to block a single child being recruited and given this poison. There will be a hearing at the end of July to determine this. Please rest assured that I and the entire team will be pursuing this judicial review all the way. Just as with your predecessor, Wes Streeting, we implore you to do the right thing and pull the plug on this monstrosity of a trial. If you don't, we will see you in court. Good. Women make up the overwhelming majority of converts to Islam in the West. Leftism drives this through suicidal empathy for foreign cultures and rigid conformity to anti-Western dogma promoted by academia, the media, and dominant institutions. As more women have shifted further left in recent years, they increasingly turn away from the freedoms of Western society towards a vacuum filled by the structure of Islam. Orwell identified the pattern in 1984. It was always the women, and above all the young ones, who were the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogans, the amateur spies and nosers out of unorthodoxy. The most zealous supporters of strict ideological systems have long been women. These conversions highlight how leftism has created a cultural opening that Islam effectively fills. Boy, it's hot in here. I probably should have turned on the AC before the show. I think my camera is overheating. You can see it like getting jittery. I tried restarting it. I don't think that helped. We'll see. Keep monitoring it. Falcon 9. Elon warned about AI energy bottleneck.
Yes, I can't emphasize enough. We need more electricity. However much electricity you think you need is more than that is needed. I assure you. If you're thinking, should I build this incremental production capacity of electricity? Yes.
Hilarious. Elon reposted Afghan army commanders brought their child sex slaves onto U.S. bases. Marines got PTSD from hearing them get raped. Oh, are you kidding me? Why would they allow that? The governor of the district I deployed to had a basement rape dungeon. And these were our allies, the supposed good guys. People have no idea how bad it is there. From Matt Walsh, rape gangs are not some kind of aberration. Ask any combat veteran what they saw in Afghanistan. The sexual torture and slavery of children is utterly commonplace in Muslim countries. It's part of their culture, which is why it's suicidal to import that culture into the West. Yes. They're feeding your children to the crocodiles, and the government won't say who did it because it would be racist to do so. Good Lord.
Astonishing story that is coming to us from Huntingdonshire. A 30-year-old man from Norfolk has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a 3-year-old boy ended up in the crocodile enclosure at the zoo at Oldhurst in Huntingdonshire, leaving him with serious injuries, according to Cambridgeshire Police. That is just coming to us from the police service at the moment. They say that they are with the boy's family in hospital as they wait for news on the treatment of their child. So that is the breaking news. A 30-year-old man from Norfolk arrested on suspicion of attempted murder in Huntingdonshire. Astonishing story that is coming.
Can you guys still hear me? I turned on my AC as I was instructed by Dina. If it's too loud, let me know. Let's see. This French woman who was raped by a migrant has been convicted and will be sentenced for saying publicly that migrants are a danger to women. Her rapist has not been caught. Good Lord.
Hello, dear European and American patriots. I need your help. Tomorrow, I may be sentenced to unsuspended prison for daring to say on French TV that the main danger to women in France comes from black, African and Arab immigrant men, even though I was defending a woman who was herself raped by a Central African man subject to an OQTF order in the courtyard of her Paris apartment building. Having myself survived an attempted rape by a Tunisian migrant 4 years ago, I could not remain silent. But for having spoken these words on a television set, the prosecutor has sought a prison sentence against me. She dismissed our two stories as insignificant incidents which did not excuse my hate speech. Yet, all I did was describe a reality that most French people are afraid to speak about, precisely because the justice system is capable of convicting them for describing what they see with their own eyes and experience firsthand. This is the repression faced by people in France who speak the truth out loud. But thanks to you, I have hope ahead of the verdict, which will be handed down tomorrow. Just yesterday, I was still hesitating to publish my story, thinking nobody would notice, and it has now spread beyond our borders. And thanks to this media pressure, the justice system may back down before trying to send me to prison instead of our attackers. Please share this message. We are no longer afraid. We are not alone. The French people are not giving in and are standing strong. Thank you.
Sadly, she's probably going to be put in prison, judging from the pattern of who they're throwing in prison. That's so terrible. It's all right. Well, they're getting theirs. They're just exposing themselves. All the people that are doing this are just exposing themselves. Gary the Snail and the beginning of the Boring Company. I remember that. Yeah. What do we got here?
Je viens d'être condamné à 6 mois de prison avec...
Okay, so I don't speak that language. I've just been sentenced to 6 months in prison with a suspended sentence and 10,000 euro fine based on the Samuel Party law. Sentenced as a journalist because my media outlet, Frontiers, published a major investigation into lawyers specializing in foreigners' rights. This is an immense scandal. Indeed. Already watched that. She got 6 months for talking about her rape by a migrant TV. Europeans and American patriots. Tomorrow, the courts of my... Oh, so she did get 6 months. Shame, shame. Riley Gaines on birth control. Oops. Riley Gaines on birth control. So I was on birth control. Okay, we could listen to this.
One of the things that conservatives talk about a lot, and I know I get in my messages online, is that I talk a lot about women's fertility and women having babies and don't wait, but yet you waited 3 years in your marriage to do so. Were you on hormonal birth control, or did you guys choose to continue to reinforce your marriage before moving forward?
So I was on birth control in college, but only because, again, being a swimmer, you can imagine it's not overly comfortable to bleed when you're in a sport like that. The bathing suits are pretty revealing. You're in and out of the water all the time. I mean, we were in the water 6 hours every single day. So I got on birth control because I wanted to stop my period entirely, which, looking back now, being 26-year-old, if I could tell 18, 19-year-old me to not do that, oh my gosh, I absolutely would, because I found this super interesting. I actually just had a pretty comprehensive health screening done. One of the only things that the doctors really had to tell me, they did blood work, they did cancer screenings, they did all of these amazing tests. One of the only things they had to tell me was that I had super low bone density. And I thought to myself, that's really weird, because I lift and that promotes bone growth. And I remember asking the doctor, I'm like, well, what would really cause that? She said, were you on birth control that allowed for you to skip your period? And I told her yes, and she said, that's probably what's causing this. She said, it's good because you can work to grow it, and you're fine, you're young, you're healthy, so nothing to be overly concerned about now. But had you been on that longer and continued down that path, it could really hurt you in the long term.
The more you know. Moving on. Tunnels are underappreciated. TBC is hiring. Well, there you go. Elon Cron, June 18th. The Daily Chronicles of the Best Companies. Yeah, he's getting his own, what do you call it? His own chronicles. The Chronicles of Elon Musk. It was always going to be space compute, as you can scale 1 trillion times more than you could on Earth, Elon Musk. True. This is that. Let's see. The problem with I think this is actually where we left off yesterday. Civilization is not strong. Yeah, this is, but these are reposts. I want to say we've been through all of these already. Yep. Alrighty. I remember Jensen. All right. Today we're, so I was going to do a teaching. Oops. Oh man, now I got to go update all my cameras. Just a second. Bear with me. There you go. How many screens is that going to affect? It's going to affect them all. Anyway, what was I saying? So I was going to do my final teaching on the Trinity, but I don't think I'm really ready to do everything that I wanted to, because I still have more slides. I'm trying to make it really simple. And show the contrast of what it is that people are trying to say. So I want to put more work into that before we actually go down that rabbit hole. But I did find this video from Dr. Chuck Missler about Zechariah 5. And I thought it might bless you to go through this video. It's only about 15. It's an hour-long video. We're only going to listen to about 15 minutes of it, because he has an interesting perspective on what it is that Zechariah 5, that curse that goes throughout the whole earth, going into the homes of the thieves and perjurers. He's got an interesting perspective on what it is that the scripture is saying about that scroll, about what that scroll does. And I thought it was worth our time to listen to this. And I think you'll enjoy it. So let's do this.
Our God is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with power justice and truth.
Just because I like this song.
Our God is a mighty God.
I am working. We'll probably have this. Tell you in a minute. All right. Oh, here's another camera. God, I gotta fix them all. I changed the camera plug. It's no longer going through the major hub, which is what was crashing. Where is it? Let me change this to here. There you go. Okay. So the song, Our God is a Mighty God. I have not forgotten about that. I am working on getting that mastered so that we can get it submitted. Once it's mastered, it has to be accepted. Once it's accepted, then they issue the UPCs and stuff like that so that it's all copyrighted, and then we'll be able to publish it. So once I have that, I'll let you know. So it'll probably be towards the end of next week, because sometimes that process takes a couple of days. But in the meantime, let's learn what we can about Zechariah 5.
The thing we need to remember, I think we learned some of that last time, we need to keep in focus tonight, is that a holy God cannot brook evil. Now, the first of these visions that we're going to look at, in Zechariah chapter 5, verse 1. Zechariah says, "Then I returned," it says turned, or returned actually, "and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying scroll." Now, the word behold is a hina, it's a demonstrative interjection. It signalizes something in a lively manner, as it does if in the English, if I was translating, I'd be tempted to put behold exclamation point and continue the sentence. And it speaks of a scroll, a Megillah, actually. Now, this is in contrast to what you and I are familiar with as a book. The thing that we're used to with leaves that you turn is a book. That's called a codex, where the pages are separate and bound at the spine. And that was introduced in the 3rd century AD. So prior to that, most of the ancient scrolls in Israel and elsewhere were in scrolls, typically either papyrus or leather, and done in a roll of some kind, typically 10 inches to a foot wide and maybe 30 feet long. And if you get a chance to go to Israel and you visit the Israeli Museum,
just a point on this, and this is something that I wish more people would realize when they're teaching the scripture, and they make these comments, like, because I was raised with this, I understand where it comes from. They make these comments or these declarative statements that the Word of God is perfect, right? Which I'm not saying that when God speaks, what he says isn't perfect. But you have to realize that what we refer to in our minds as the Word of God is usually the canon of the 66-book Bible, which is not explicitly the Word of God, right? It is the product of man combining these scrolls, which were huge, 10 inches wide and up to 30 feet in length. Could you imagine when these things were written? Now, how did these scrolls come about? Well, there were some prophets had scribes. Some of the authors had scribes that would write down what they said, and some of them were written down, by the holy men. But it's the actual words that were given to the holy men that are the Word of God. And it's not limited to that canon of what, any denomination says this is the Word. Now, it is generally understood that those 66 books or the 88 books that used to be scrolls contain truth. And this is where, just in my old age, after having come out of a cult to where I challenge everything that I've learned that people have said is truth, because some of that could have been added in by the organization that's trying to push a particular narrative, right? So this is why I make the statement to where I don't know if Paul was divinely inspired by God and if what his writings are true. That doesn't mean that what he wrote in there can't be true. It can contain some truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire thing must be 100% truth. And the reason I say this is because God has to be aware of this, that there are people who probably believe a lot of lies. They've inherited a lot of religious beliefs. It actually even says as much in the Old Testament. They've inherited lies and deception. And God's aware of this. And this is why I think that it's really a heart issue when it comes to being saved and not being saved, and the whole point of the law, which is what we're talking about here, is the whole point of God's word, of the law, is this is the right way to live. This is what is needed for you to please God. And that's what his word is it's the instructions in righteousness. And I think we need to keep that in mind, that and I'm not saying to doubt the scripture. I'm just saying prove the things that you think you know. Because there's a lot of people out there, and they're going to, and there's a lot of people that are going to hold to these things up until Christ returns and until that they're confronted with it directly. And many people who think they're super righteous are going to find out that they've just been living a lie. You know what I mean? And then there's going to be people who nobody thought was religious, who's been living, been following God and listening to his voice, better than some of the most religious people. Anyway, I think of that anytime I get this visual imagery of the papyrus rolls. Like, you realize that in the Old Testament, people had to go to a synagogue and pull out these rolls in order to read, and read what had been written. And they took great care in protecting these, and handing them down and making copies of them. But, it got to a point to where when they combined it into a canon, they took what they thought. There's arguably probably tens of thousands of other books that should have been included in the canon that probably contained information that's been lost to the centuries, lost to the ages. But what's interesting is enough of it has survived so that we could get to where we are today. And God had to be aware of that. He had to know, obviously he knew that, what he instructed holy men to do and say and write down would be eventually put into a canon and used as a backbone for belief. Jesus was aware of that as well. Matter of fact, that a major part of what he did was to shape that. I believe that a big part of what he did was to put a stop to the rampant runaway wickedness. So, and seeing the example of his life and getting the Roman Catholic Church, even if they turn out to be wicked in the end, part of what he did was almost like leaven. Like, they took the leaven that he started, and it kind of infected what it was that they did, so that the end result is all you have to do is look at him on the cross and you're saved. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty amazing, really, that even having inherited lies and deception, that we can still be acceptable in God's eyes. Anyway, I'll stop talking about this. We can get back to it. I was just, when I see those scrolls, I get the visuals. Like, could you imagine having to read a scroll and not having it easily accessible, even in just a book format?
Museum adjacent to it, and part of it is the Shrine of the Book, which celebrates the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the center feature of this unusual building is the scroll of Isaiah, and a complete copy of Isaiah. But again, it's a scroll, not a codex as we're used to. It actually wraps around a very, very large, very elegantly done exhibit. And you can see these discoveries if you go there. Now, bear in mind, this is a vision. This scroll is a flying scroll. And it's interesting that the Hebrew word is apha, And the second vision has to do with an ephah. And no one seems to notice, comment on the fact that it's almost a homonymic form of play on words or something. They're very different, both in their concepts and what they're talking about. But it's interesting, it's almost like a play on words. But in any case, it's a flying scroll. An active energy is suggested here. Now, this is perhaps another clue as to what does this flying scroll represent. We're all reminded immediately with Hebrews 4:12. We've all quoted that. The Word of God is living and active. And this is an example very vividly in the vision where this flying scroll is active. The Hebrews 4:12 says the Word of God is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, dividing asunder of the soul and the spirit and of the joints and the marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Interesting, only the Word of God can discern between the soul and the spirit. And this is one of the verses that condemns psychology to a very limited result. Because the field of psychology can only go to the psyche or the soul level, at best. And I think most of us recognize it doesn't do that very well very often. But going to the spiritual level is out of reach. Psychology has no real answer to the predicament of man, because the predicament of man is sin. And the symptom of sin is guilt. And psychology tries to deal with the symptom, not the cause. It has no answer for sin. Only the cross has an answer for that, which is one of the frustrations that surface in our current culture. We're going to discover, we're in obviously verse 1, but when we get down to verse 3, we'll discover that this scroll is written on both sides. That's unusual. Generally, papyrus or leather has a favored side. It's written on one side only. When something is written on both sides, it's unusual. It's a title deed or something else of that kind.
Yeah.
Now, as we try to unravel
that's one of the reasons why people tend to lean towards the seven-sealed scroll in the book of Revelations as a title deed to the earth. But you're going to hear Chuck Missler here give a better explanation, one that I think is pretty darn good.
Is the Holy Spirit suggesting by this scroll what things are written on two sides? If you turn to, I won't bother tonight, but you can note that Exodus 32 verse 15 describes the 10 Commandments. We all recognize those 10 Commandments under the arms of Charlton Heston coming down from the hill. We always see these little plaques and things in souvenir shops of them written on one side only.
Yeah, the tablets had it
But
on
we discover
both.
from the Scripture they are written on both sides. Also in Revelation chapter 5, we have the seven-sealed book that is written within and on the backside, and generally regarded by most experts as a title deed to the planet Earth that falls in the hand. In fact, I'm getting some blank stares. Let's pause for a minute and look at Revelation chapter 5. Revelation chapter 5, verse 1.
This is what we just went through.
The entire Bible comes into focus from the book of Revelation. I often start new Christians in the book of Revelation first, then wrap around to Genesis, go through the whole book. By the time you come to Revelation the second time, it'll all fit together for you. But so serious, I'm not being flippant, seriously. But in Revelation chapter 5, John is transported to the control room of the universe, and he says, I saw on the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written.
So I don't think that he's really transported to the control room of the universe. I love that visual imagery, though, because what we've discovered, and this is just a moot point. I mean, like, it's a really good illustration, the control room of the universe. I don't want to dog that, but what it is actually describing is it's the needed imagery in order to identify how to watch the seals being opened, which is this, looking down at the North Pole with the four living creatures in the four corners, so that we could watch for the eclipses to happen in each one of these corners. So if you want to call it a control room, I love that analogy. It's a really cool image, but it's not, I don't think it was lit. Could be. I mean, like, maybe he really did go up to Polaris, and maybe he really was looking down at the earth, and maybe this is what it seems like. I don't think it is, though, because, you know, from all the imagery that I can find from the earth, number one, constellations don't have pictographs. So, like, if you're looking down at the earth, the constellations don't look like this. The only way they look like this is on a computer. And I'm of the opinion that God knew we would have computers and that we would have this ability to look at this, and that this is what the imagery was specifically intended for us to look at in order to see how the book of Revelation lays out over time. Now, I could be wrong about that, but just given what we've seen with the Revelation 12 sign, a sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. There's no image of a woman in the heavens. It's just little dots of light. The only reason it's known as a woman is because throughout the ages, we've associated that constellation with a woman. Now, maybe it goes all the way back to Joseph because he taught the stars. Maybe it even goes back as far as the Watchers. Maybe that's how they associated that particular constellation. We don't have that specific information. It's the furthest we can go back as far as the constellations and like the names of them and the pictographs and stuff like that. It's not very far. I mean, yes, there's been archaeological discoveries where we've found like synagogues that have the Mazarot in the floor. But as far as like, and the names are contained in the Old Testament in some places, the Mazarot. But very, very limited information. Ptolemy was the one who kind of put together the names and the pictographs based on what we've discovered through archaeology. So, but it's cool that God knew the information we would have at this particular time. And I think that's ultimately what it's intended to convey is when he's describing the control room, it's intended for us to look for this so that we can discover how to identify what's going on. So anyway, just side note on that. Let's get back to the video.
Written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" And no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the scroll, neither to look upon it. See, it had to be a man. It has to be a kinsman of Adam. There's a whole development behind that. You and I don't understand verse 1, 2, and 3 there, but John did. Because in verse 4 he says, "I sobbed convulsively because no man was found worthy to open and to read the scroll, neither to look upon it." He understood that this was that moment of destiny. One of the elders said unto him, verse 5, "Weep not! Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, hath prevailed to open the scroll and to loose
Oh, I did it again. I really need to stop. Did you enjoy the muted picture show? All right, I'll do it again. We'll start over here. All right, so in regards to the root of David, I made these pictures to illustrate some of the things that I've been teaching. Is this is the formed from the dust of the ground, right? Because you keep hearing me say you believe that Adam was formed from the dust of the ground. And I wanted to make sure that it was wind that was forming him from the dust of the ground, because ruach is wind, and some have suggested that the pronunciation of yod he vav he is the sound of breathing. So that every breath you take is saying God's name. So you believe that Adam was formed from the dust of the ground, and God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam when he realized that it was not good to be alone, and he took from Adam the material that he needed in order to produce Eve. And then they sinned. But women were from the same. You ever ask yourself why he didn't just form Eve from the dust of the ground? Why didn't he form Adam and Eve from the dust of the ground? Why did Eve come from Adam? I believe that it was the plan from the very beginning, the redemption of mankind, because there would come a day when many would not believe that the Messiah was born from a virgin, and they wouldn't understand how that's possible. And yet he made it obvious by putting it right in the beginning. Look at the genetics. So the seed couldn't be contributed from someone who had that perpetual sin. It had to be a new seed, but it had to be from the same genetics. So by taking the material needed out of the ribs and forming a seed and implanting that in her, that fulfills the begotten son part. So God is the source by causing this all to happen in the same way, that he caused this to happen. He caused Adam to be formed from the dust. He caused Adam to sleep, and he took the material needed to form Eve. And then from Mary, he basically reversed the process in order to make the lamb without blemish who would go on to save mankind. So, but this explains, I believe, how Jesus, and this is the part that Jews miss, this explains how Jesus is the root of David, because he would have been of the same genetic material, because he would have been formed from Mary. And if you don't believe that's possible, then you should not believe that this is possible. If you believe that Adam was formed from the dust of the ground, and Eve was taken from his side, then surely this is not too far of a stretch. That's just my opinion. I think it's pretty darn logical. All right, let's get back to the video. I'm not going to mute it anymore. If it's the AC is too noisy, let me know.
Prevail, and he's qualified to take this title deed and lay his claim. And his identifiers here are all Jewish. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. Who is that? Jesus Christ, indeed. The root of David hath prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its seven seals. And I looked, I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood not a lamb, the lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, and which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And that starts...
Notice he didn't take the scroll out of his own hand. He took the scroll out of the one who sat upon the throne.
The whole unrolling of the final redemption of the planet Earth, heaven and earth. We're going to see, I think, a foreshadowing of this in this vision in Zechariah. Let's get back to Zechariah. We're down to verse 2. See, we're making good progress. Zechariah chapter 5, verse 2, and he said unto me, this is the angel, remember there's the angel here that's sort of his guide, his escort through this whole vision. The angel who talked with him. He says, and he said unto me, what seest thou? This angel seems to give Zechariah continual pop quizzes here. What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll or scroll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. And that's kind of wild. He's seeing a vision, and yet he's got its measurements. Now, there's some reasons why these measurements would be very familiar to Zechariah, because these happen to be the dimensions of the holy place of the tabernacle.
See, this is the information that I didn't really understand, is why the dimensions. I knew they were important. I just wasn't sure where they came from. But this makes sense.
The tabernacle was essentially 10 cubits wide, 10 cubits high. It's got 20 cubits long and then another 30 cubits long totally. But the holy place, the first place you enter, the place that the priest served. As a priest, he would be familiar with this. It was 10 by 20 cubits. Also, by the way, something else that might be on his mind is the porch of the temple, Solomon's temple, that they were replicating there and attempting to build under Ezra and subsequently under Nehemiah, was the temple. And the porch of Solomon's porch is also that particular dimension. The dimension of the tabernacle I find in Exodus 26, and 1 Kings 6 verse 3 has the porch dimensions. So this scroll seems to, on the one hand, suggest the Word of God coming in judgment, as we'll see, but also it should remind us of 1 Peter 4:17. For the time is come that judgment must begin where?
At the house of God.
At the house of God. In the denotative sense, of course, that's Israel. In the connotative sense, it applies to the people of God. And Peter goes on in that verse and says, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them who obey not the gospel of Christ? The gospel of God. So if it starts with us, can you imagine the predicament of those who are even more distant? But then we get to Zechariah chapter 5, verse 3. Then he said unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off on this side according to it. And every one that sweareth shall be cut off on that side according to it. See, it's this verse that gives us the clue that the thing's written on both sides. Also, the angel here is referring to two commandments that are regarded by most of the experts as representative of the 10. Because the first few have to do with God, swearing, and our relationship with God, and the remainder, as you know, in the 10 Commandments, have to do with our relationship with each other.
Yeah, so this is what I had alluded to a couple days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. Time flies by. But that basically the curse is the curse of the law. It's the 10 Commandments. On the one side are those who have failed to love their neighbor as themselves. And on the other side, the ones who have failed to love God. Those who swear falsely by his name.
Stealing, adultery, those kinds.
Because remember, Yeshua, when asked, what are the two most important commandments? He said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and prophets.
Things. And so the two commandments,
for being separate scrolls and separate books, they sure do tie together really well. That's how you know what is actually of God, because it doesn't contradict. Same thing, the heavens, the earth, the sea, the everything. All of creation has the same author. When you know you've gotten to the truth, when it doesn't contradict.
That are here alluded to, most commentators feel are intended to be representative. Now, the word curse may surprise us because we generally think of a curse as just a nasty thing, but it's used in the scripture frequently, and it is in this case. It's used of the judgment of God. Numbers 5, Deuteronomy 29, and there's a whole bunch of verses. I won't drag you through all those. But something kind of interesting to me, the word curse in the Hebrew happens to be Allah.
Interesting.
It's not the Arabic word Allah. It's not quite the same thing. But the word Allah in the Hebrew means retribution or punishment. It's translated curse here, but it's really punishment or retributive type of curse.
And that's something.
But it's interesting to me, vocally, it's may be very close to the word Allah, which means, again, retribution or originally in the Arabic. But anyway, Allah of Islam, who knows? I couldn't resist pointing that out. Now, the stealing and swearing are the two specific things called out there, theft or perjury in more broader terms. They represent both of the tables of the law. It's the middle commandment of each table, so to speak. It says they will be cut off, or more precisely, cleansed out.
You know, what's also interesting is that's a mirror image. Just couldn't help but point that out.
The word, the Hebrew, it means purged from. It's in the prophetic perfect, in a sense, shall surely be cleaned out, is what it really means. Now, we look at that, and you get concerned, and yet let's remind ourselves at this point, keep our own bearings from the New Testament. Galatians 3:13 tells us, Christ hath redeemed us from what?
Curse of the law.
The curse of the law. See, there's that term used there. Curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. And it's interesting that you and I so glibly take that for granted. We're under grace, and we get that so emphasized. And yet there is a curse under the law that, short of being in Christ, everyone is heir to. But we have the benefit, if we're in Christ, to be redeemed from that because he was in our place.
So one thing I do want to point out that I think I would be remiss if I don't is Matthew 7:22, I think it is. This is the famous one that I keep repeating. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. That's from his words when he returns. He's told us that's what he's going to say to many. So I just wanted to point that out, that there is, you know, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. So this is the judgment of the law being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone who hangeth on a tree. That doesn't mean, it can't mean that we are to be lawless. And again, one of my favorite questions is anybody who says we're no longer bound to the law. Well, which one are you going to tell Christ that you no longer have to follow when he says, get behind me, you who practice lawlessness? And which one of the laws are you no longer going to follow? Is it going to be the loving God one? Killing your neighbor? Committing adultery? Stealing? They're all pretty good. I mean, there's not any that you can't benefit that's not beneficial. Anyway, let's continue.
Now, speaking of these laws, of course, these laws are summarized in the great commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. When Jesus quotes that in response to what is the great commandment, he, of course, is quoting from the Shema, the Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. He ties the second commandment with Leviticus 19:18. He does all this in Matthew 22. You're familiar with it, I'm sure. Verse 4 of Zechariah 5. Boy, we're making progress here so far. I will bring it forth, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and to the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof. Boy, that's a strange language.
Yeah.
Now, actually, that language, if you're familiar with the Torah and you've done your homework, in Leviticus 14:45, the destruction of the house of a leper is described with that same language. And also in Amos 3:15. And so what we see here, leper, I'm using the term leper here typologically in the sense of a type of sin. So we see this a judgment coming, here mentioned. Now, by the way, I might mention, I don't want to limit this focus the way some of the commentators do. However, one of the most competent ones, Merrill Unger, points out the tie-in here to the Palestinian covenant in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through it verse by verse, but I do encourage you, doubling back on this, you might want to read the first 10 verses of Deuteronomy 30, which goes over the Palestinian covenant. It speaks of their dispersion if Israel disobeys this covenant of the land. Well, maybe we should do this. This is too important. Turn to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30. And we're going to let's just read the first 10 verses rather quickly to get the flavor of them. We're not going to try to dissect it carefully. This shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, this is speaking to Israel, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations to which the Lord thy God hath driven thee. And thou shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart, with all thy soul. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations where the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. Let me pause. It's interesting about the history of Israel. Its origin, its ups, its downs, its destiny are all laid out in advance. The diaspora that's gone on for the better part of 2,000 years is alluded to here. Verse 4, and if any of thine be driven out unto the utmost parts of the heaven, from there will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from there will he fetch thee. The Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, who persecuted thee. And that, of course, is echoed in Matthew 25, in the sheep and goat judgment, strangely enough. Verse 8, and thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all these commandments which I command thee this day, and the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, and the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this book of the law, and if thou return unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul. And it goes on. Now, the point is interesting that if you analyze this, the dispersion for disobedience is mentioned in the first verse, the future repentance in the second verse, the reversal of fortunes but ultimate return to the Lord in the third verse, the final regathering and restoration, verses 3 to 5, and their national conversion in verse 6, judgment upon their enemies in verse 7, obedience and millennial blessing in verse 9, and that preparation of that, of course, is what Jeremiah 30 verse 7 says is the time of Jacob's trouble, or known in the New Testament as the Great Tribulation. To understand the tribulation, you need to understand its Jewishness. Not that it isn't worldwide, but that's its primary objective and focus. And yet it applies.
And this might be the thing that makes it so hard to determine, the tribulation from the Great Tribulation is its Jewishness. Is it just the Great Tribulation that the Jews are experiencing? Everybody wants to think that it applies to them or the whole world, that's how you're going to know. Not necessarily.
All these things apply individually, as emphasized in verse 10. One of the commentators, I think it was Unger, summarized what we read so far this way. It's as if he said, I, the Lord of the celestial as well as the terrestrial armies, will cause the curse to go forth with certainty and celerity. With certainty because I will send it forth, and with celerity because it shall go forth as a flying scroll. And I believe that this ushers in these visions, in effect, the same thing that we read in Revelation. In fact, chapters 4 through 19 are little more than an expansion of the 7-year period that's known among scholars as the 70th week of Daniel, that 7-year period that's so strange, so bizarre, and yet so pivotal, the most documented period in the entire Bible. See, none are going to be able to hide from God in that day. See, in our present day, we're in the age of grace, or we might even call it the age of patience, long-suffering, while the gospel of God, of Christ, is being patiently proclaimed. God is, for the most part, silent to the blasphemies and crimes of ungodly sinners.
Yep.
While the heavens have received and crucified the risen Redeemer. How long? Until the times of the restitution of all things, as Peter said in Acts chapter 3. The times of restitution of all things which God hath spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. That's Peter's words out of the 21st verse of Acts 3. So criminals at the moment can appear to go undetected and prosper. But that period of time is coming to an end.
Yep.
And the opening of the seven seal scroll in Revelation 5, which are going to loose judgments that will dispossess the planet Earth from the usurper that's presently in control. He and his demons and wicked men.
And this was the primary reason why I wanted to go through his study of this, because this is ultimately the part that most people miss. And we've been saying this roundabout, but I think this sums it up quite nicely. The opening of the seven sealed scroll will loose judgments that will dispossess the usurper and his demons and wicked men from the earth, preparatory to the advent of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords to establish his rule and kingdom. And we can see that from what's been happening. You know, you've got COVID that locked everybody down. We saw how they took advantage of that, how they used it to conquer, to bring the world to heel. Then the Biden administration, once the world was brought to heel, was supposed to rise up. Instead, God turned this against them. This was a curse against them to expose them. You know, they may have cheated. They may have lied, stolen, and cheated during this time, but it wasn't hidden. God saw it. It exposed them. People who I thought loved God turned evil during this time. People I looked up to as mentors turned evil during this time. It's the only time I ever blocked anybody on Facebook was during COVID. The Biden administration. You know, the yoking together of the United States and the United Kingdom, all of this leading up to the Al-Aqsa flood on October 7th. That was seal number 4, death followed by Hades, death followed by hell. And then now we're getting ready. If we're not in it, if we're not in the Great Tribulation, which we might be, there was an eclipse that fit the pattern on February 2026. The next eclipse that fits the pattern, and the reason why we look at eclipses is because it's the eclipses that told us what to look for when the 24 elders cast their crowns before the throne, the crowns of the sun and the moon, when they come together and they cast it before the throne. That's an eclipse. This was the start of COVID. This was the start of the Biden administration, this eclipse. This eclipse was when the United States and United Kingdom yoked together at the G7. Yoke. And this was the response to the Al-Aqsa flood. The hell. The death followed by hell. So this next one, the one opening on, if it's not already open, the next one to open fits a pattern. So seal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a mirror image. So in the same way that the curse has two sides to it, written on this side and that side, you might even be able to associate all the thieves with all the perjurers. That could be the two sides of this. That might be why there's two. The way it's split and the way that it is. You know, so often we think when we see time, and half a times, we assume that it means 3.5 years. Well, if you have 7 periods of time that are preordained to bring that curse through the whole earth, time, times, and a half of time, doesn't have to be 3.5 years. It could actually just be 3.5 of the 7 seals. 3.5. 3.5 is the midway point of 7. We often assume that it must only mean 3.5 years, but it could just mean 3.5 seals. All right. I think that's as far as we want to go on here. This is a really good video. From here, he starts to get into Ezekiel 39, or the rest of Zechariah 5, with the wickedness, the woman of wickedness, and the lead lid. And there's an association with that and the nuclear attack. Maybe we'll continue this on Monday and continue to study Ezekiel 39, depending on how I go with my other preparations. But that was what I wanted to cover for now. Anybody got any questions? We're at about an hour and 45 minutes. We could probably handle some comments if you guys don't have any questions. I know Dina had asked a couple of times, mentioning that you had seen that there's no what was it, that there's a pre-tribulation rapture, or there's no pre-tribulation rapture. Do you need me to address that again? Let me know. All right. Until you guys respond with some good lesson. Okay. Unless you guys have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the comments you guys have posted. It was not on my live feed. Yeah, Lion Dog. So I screwed up yesterday. I pre-recorded that episode, and because I had reasons, I pre-recorded it for reasons, and for some reason it didn't finish uploading to YouTube. Normally I use Rumble Studio for the multicasting and for even the pre-played, but there's been a bug on Rumble Studio lately to where it only plays the first 30 minutes of a pre-recorded video. So because of that, I've started uploading to YouTube separately from Rumble Studio, because the majority of people are on YouTube. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate reality. As much as I'd like to switch 100% over to Rumble, that's just the most people are on YouTube, unfortunately, and that's where most of the new people find us, is on YouTube. So it's a necessary evil at this point. But yeah, and for some reason it didn't upload all the way on YouTube, but it uploaded on Rumble. So Rumble started off just fine on time, but YouTube, by the time I realized it didn't upload, I had to go back and re-upload everything again, and then that's why we started 45 minutes late. So sorry about that. The song you played at the start of the timeline report is about Cain being the seed. Oh, the timeline report about Cain being the seed of someone other than Adam, and sin coming in via that channel. I thought we sorted that. Did we sort it? It's an old song. So you're talking about this one. Oh, no, that's not the one you're talking about. No. You're talking about, you said the timeline. You said the timeline, right? You started at the timeline report. Oh, this is Wayne. Wayne, yeah, this is one of Wayne's topics of study. So this one, I think.
I created the heavens and the earth, a perfect harmony, a timeless birth. I shaped the stars, I set them free, a world of wonder, a song for me.
Oh, there's my frozen face.
I formed the man, the dust took flight, I gave the woman a shared delight. Together they stood, my breath, their frame.
I think in here I talk about Gadriel.
Heart, a living flame.
Here it is.
Gadriel cracked, his voice a snare, deceived my Eve,
yep.
A seed to bear. Like gods you'll rise, she bore him.
Yeah, so I take a creative liberty with that statement. So what we came to, Wayne, is that we don't know. Yeah. So let's see. So I can't remember what was the final conclusion. Let me walk this through in my head. We went through the book of Jubilees. We did the timeline. Matter of fact, I think I still have that timeline. No, it's not established as much as I would like it to be. I would love to have a solid answer on this. Seed of the serpent. Right. So you've got the fall of Adam and expulsion. So we're assuming that all of this is true, even though it's coming from the book of Jubilees, which arguably may or may, I don't know, it may or may not be true. So what was the, I think we got it down to two possibilities, if I remember correctly. So Cain was born 60 years after post-fall. I have to go watch that video again. So Cain was born in 64 AD. His brother Abel was born in 71. So a couple of years later, Abel was born. And then when he was about 100, Cain kills Abel. So Abel was what, like 30? 84 AD? 100 AD? I don't know, whatever. I'm spitballing the ages. So the question is did Gadriel come down at any point in this time? Adam and Eve lived outside the garden, childless for 56 to 62 years. I have a hard time believing this. Like, when God told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, see, this is one of the issues I have with the book of Jubilees, is I have a hard time believing that they could go 50 to 60 years without producing children. Unless, and this is a very Jewish perspective, the process of producing children was somehow taking the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I've heard that before. And this was from listening to a rabbi teach, saying that basically Adam and Eve were in another realm, like in a spiritual sense, and they came down to earth and took on flesh, and then it was in their flesh producing children that was the problem. So that might be where this is based on. But I can't get over the fact that, so if you believe that this is true, then we have to believe that Gadriel is the one who deceived Eve. So maybe it wasn't seed specifically. I just don't think there's enough information to say confidently one way or the other. So I wouldn't say that it's like established, but I get your point. Unfortunately, this is a published song, and there's not anything I can do about it. So it is what it is. That's one of the things. Once you master a song and then publish it, it's just out there. The world has millions of copies of it. I wish. It's got tens of copies of it, and you can't really pull it back and unpublish it. I don't think you can. I think once it's published, it's in the system. Like, it's got a UPC code. It's a permanent deal. So I don't know. I still go by it. I still say that it is one of the possibilities, but I would say that you've definitely cast doubt on that argument. Here's a thought I came up with when I was thinking about that. You know what this tells us? So let me ask you this question. Do you think you have to be possessed to kill somebody? So if demons are disembodied Nephilim, and it's the demons that do the possessing, was Cain possessed when he killed his brother? Well, if there were no disembodied Nephilim, the answer would be no. Think about that one for a while. All right, let's go back to your comment. Yeah, as much as I would like to have an answer to everything in the Bible and know for sure, I still say that there's room for that line that Gadriel is the one who deceived Eve to possibly have been the contributing factor to Cain. Because what's also interesting is in Genesis 3, Adam doesn't call Eve until after they have fallen, and there's the line in there that says she's the mother of all living, which implies that there's lineage, that there's kids, that there's at least a couple of living. Now you can make the argument that could include Cain and Abel because of the structure of Genesis, the summary and the expansion, But I don't know. Just I wish I had a better answer on that, and I can't change the song, and I still like the song. But it does probably now we're obligated until Christ returns to explain this every time it comes up. I'll come up with a better explanation. These are the two possibilities. There is still a possibility that Gadriel's the father of Cain, but it's highly unlikely. There you go. How about that? Because it does say Gadriel's the one who deceived Eve. Thanks for finishing your song. I love it. Yeah, thank you. I love it too. Are you ever going to forgive me for being a bit too headstrong? I still wish you well, Watchful. Who's flipping fish? I don't know who you are. Fury, do you know who that is? I don't know who that is. Somebody, did I block you? Are you one of the people who text me? I get texts from people who are fearful for my soul. Maybe that's flipping fish. When talking with people who died. I don't know who you are. I don't really hold grudges. You are likely forgiven. I'm just kidding. There you go. It's called HARP or DARPA. Storm parts for the storm parts for Trump. So you think? I mean, that's still. If it was HARP or DARPA that split the storm, because I did this video on the storm splitting for Trump, if he's in control of it, that would still fit the attributes of them controlling the weather. Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, it's not that I don't forgive anybody. It's just like I don't hold grudges. If I don't respond to you, if I talk to you on a regular basis or something like that, which there's people like that, if I just start avoiding you and stop talking to you, it's probably because you won't stop doing something. And you get to a point with people to where for your own mental health, you have to mark and avoid them. I don't like doing that, but in some cases that is something that you need to do. You know, and if it's somebody who loves you and really wants to change, usually you've given them millions of opportunities to change, but there are those who just sometimes don't get it and won't give up something and will continue to attack you. You know, I actually kind of have PTSD from marking and avoiding because that was one of the big weapons that was used in the cult when I was growing up. Is somebody was marked and avoided, and usually nobody knew why they were marked and avoided, but usually it's because they questioned the church, so they were marked and avoided. They ended up so it's just like that's the wrong way to do marking and avoiding. But there is, you know, a point. Yes, we forgive one another, we love one another, and I want the best for you. But at the same time, we also have to, we love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And if you're not allowing me to love myself because you're continually attacking me, well, I'm going to probably block your calls and hide from you for a while until you wake up. You know, God has a way of putting people through tribulation when they're boneheads. you tend to bring that on yourself. So, yeah. It's called harp or dark. Let's see what else. Speaking of scrolls, perhaps you can go through Revelation 10 and make sense of it. Revelation 10. Dun, dun, dun. We're not quite there yet, are we? So Revelation 10. What are they doing here to my... Whoops. Don't want to... I don't want to do that. Let's do Revelation 10. Nope. The mighty angel with the little book. John eats the little book. Then the two witnesses. Oh, I was just... What was I just reading about this? I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven. So this is in the context. This is what you call a parenthetical statement, to where if you have, so in storytelling, and this happened, there's actually several of these in the scripture, to where if you have a linear timeline of events that are taking place, and then there's a break, and a break that is something different than that linear timeline, that's typically a parenthetical statement. And in some cases, it's like a flashback. So if you were to visualize it with a movie, it would be similar to going previously on, to where it's just like, or if you were telling a story, and then like Family Guy does this all the time, to where they do flashbacks, to where they'll say, oh, it was like that one time, at the mall or whatever, and then they do a flashback of something stupid. That's like a parenthetical statement. So that's what this is here in Revelation 10. So you've got so this is in the trumpets. This is why I was saying I don't think it's happened yet. So you've got, this is the seventh seal. So we're coming up upon the sixth and seventh seal. So fifth seal, sixth seal. So the fifth seal is probably the Great Tribulation. We have no idea if we're in this yet. Still to be determined. Strong suspicions that we are, but could be convinced otherwise, depending on what happens on August 12th. August 12th is going to be a big indicator for if we're here or we're here. If the world's not freaking out about the magnetic pole shift, we're probably getting ready to go into the Great Tribulation. And also, if they say for peace and safety, and then somebody drops a nuclear bomb, that's probably the start of the Great Tribulation, right? So that'll be this right here. We'll expect to see the sign of the Son of Man shortly after. So say they drop a nuclear bomb in August, right? August 12th, they say peace and safety. Somebody drops a nuke. I would say in 6 months, we would look for the return of Christ. And that might be why Matthew 24:21, everybody's freaking about saying Christ is here, Christ is there, he's in the desert. Don't believe it. Because in short order after that happens would be the magnetic pole shift. That's going to be the big sign, which I think the next seal after August, the next candidate for the seal, is February, I want to say. Yeah, so February 6th. So if this is when seal 5 opens, then seal 6 would be February 6th, 2027. And that would be, so hopefully people would start freaking out more about, because fear needs to come upon the whole earth and people need to go hide in their caves. And that may only happen a week before. Like, we may start to see the earth rotate. Like, right now we're already starting to see earthquakes and shift in weather. This year is going to be a lot of drought, so there's a high likelihood that we may have power outages because, like, 4 out of the 7 major dams that produce energy in the United States are like low on water, according to BP Earthwatch. So this would be about when Christ shows up, according to Matthew 24:21 through 21 through 31. That's where these two are described. So seal number 6, it seems to be the magnetic pole shift, and then we see the sign of the Son of Man appear, and he sends out his angels to gather the elect from the 4 corners of the earth. Then after that, you've got is this a parenthetical statement? The sealed of Israel, multitude of the great tribulation. So these are those who came out of seal number 5. And then you've got seal number 7 right here. The 7th seal. So then you have the 7th seal, and then in the 7th seal, this is God's wrath. This is the magnetic pole shift has changed, and then you're going to have these trumpets. The first angel sound and the hail and fire. Obviously, this is going to be very likely going to be a result of the magnetic pole shift. You know, if you've got hail and fire mingled with blood being thrown to earth. You saw some of you guys have seen the, you remember the Y files, right? Let's see. Do I still have that up here? Yeah, matter of fact, I have it right here.
And Vishnu. In the first chapter of his book, Dr. Thomas paints a terrifying future. But how likely is it? In the next few chapters, Thomas goes on to 1,000 miles per hour. We don't feel this because everything is spinning together. The land, the water, the atmosphere. But Thomas says that when the pole shift happens,
once that starts to happen, that's probably going to contribute to these trumpets. So vegetation being struck, the seas being struck, waters being struck, the heavens being struck, the locust from the bottomless pit. That's the 5th trumpet. The angel from the Euphrates, the 6th trumpet. And then you've got this parenthetical statement right in the middle of all the trumpets. I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow on his head. His face was like the sun. His feet was like a pillar of fire. He had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered, which the context of this is likely going to be in the magnetic pole shift. So like the earth is going to be, if this is in sequence of the things. So like this could be the preparation for Pangea, for it to go back to, I think he handled that earlier in the video. Here, yeah.
Exists today. But before Pangea, there was the supercontinent Gondwana, which existed for 400 million years. Before Gondwana, there was Pannotia.
Ignore his 400 million years. I don't think anybody knows that.
Before that, Rodinia, Columbia, Atlantica, Arctica, Kennerland, Ur, and Valbara. These were all...
Anyway, the point is the Earth could potentially go back to one of those land masses. I just say Pangea because it's the one I remember. But then what? So that's about when this would be taking place, I think. I mean, this is this does seem to be a parenthesis because it's not a trumpet. It's additional information. So when he cried out, the 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered and do not write them. The angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land. See, the fact that he's standing on the sea and the land tells me, like, does this mean that this is the angel that's like going to be bringing together the land masses? Raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be delay no longer, but in the days of the sounding of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, and he declared to his servants the prophets. I wonder if that's why he's standing on the sea and on the land. That wouldn't surprise me, because it's the 6th angel sounded. Then John eats the little book. The voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me, saying, go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth. So I went to the angel and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take it and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be sweet as honey in your mouth. Then I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach had become bitter. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. I have no idea what that little book is. but it's in the context of this angel standing on the sea and the land. I have to think that's important. Maybe it's sweet and bitter because it's the restoration of the earth, but it's going to kill a lot of people. It's going to be, this is part of God's wrath. Then you got the two witnesses. So then we got to jump down here, though, because then we got to look at the trumpets. Proclamation, reaping of the earth. This is additional information. The bowl judgments, I believe, are part of seal number 7. First bowl, loathsome sores. We should actually try. Oh, this reminds me. Claire, who's been working on the timeline, on the two witnesses timeline, who's one of the most active members, she's coming on the show. She's going to talk about her timeline and where she's getting her information from and why she's putting down the information that she is. Unfortunately, she's in a drastically different time zone, so it's either going to be pre-recorded or it's going to be live very early in the morning. More information to come. It might be on Tuesday. We'll see. We're tentatively shooting for Tuesday, but if we do pre-recorded, it probably won't be released until maybe later that day. Maybe later that day. I'll try to do it later that day if we do it pre-recorded. The problem with pre-recorded, here's my thing with pre-recorded, is it's 1,000 times easier to do live. It really is. It's one of the reasons why I go live Monday through Friday, is it's just easier. You tend to speak more decisively. You say significant. Well, I don't know. I've gotten better at not saying I think. You say, it's just, you tend to go more forward and don't double clutch as much. When you pre-record, you tend to go, oh, I screwed that up. Let me start over. You do that 1,000 times. And then you have to go in and edit all of the times you screwed up out of the video, and it takes the entire day. It's one of the reasons why I love live way, way more, is for some reason the mistakes are minimized when going live. I don't know the psychology of it, but it's always better. It's so much easier. It's what enables me to do it every single day, because I can just hop on here and there's no fear of like having to edit anything. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If we do pre-recorded, then I'll try to get it published that same day, depending on how much editing I have to do. Otherwise, we may end up doing it live. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Where was I? Yeah, so back here at the bowls, I believe the bowls are part of the 7 seals. And the reason is because this last one is when the kingdoms of the world have become so the 7th angel. Then the 7th angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." So this is like the very end of all the judgments and wrath. And there were noises and thunderings and lightning, and there was a great earthquake, such as a mighty and great earthquake, and as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Now the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon was remembered before God, to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. This line is what makes me think Pangea. So for islands to flee away, I visualize like land masses coming together, like Hawaii going right in the middle of this land squishing back together again. And then in the mountains, they're a product of tectonic plates, is from what I understand, that as one plate goes under another, you get the mountains formed. So if you've got the land like being like stretched out again and like flattened, maybe that's what's in the little book. The bittersweet of the little book. I don't know for sure. That's just 100% a guess, just based on context and what we read here. If I remember correctly, I've actually heard Chuck Missler talk on this before. We'll have to go visit what he says. That'll be interesting. So that's the best I got for you for Revelation 10. There you go. Having thrall. Hit the like button, peeps. Yes. Let's see. You are not an old man. Do you ever considers very short beard trimmed with trimmed mustache? I enjoy your informative show. Not saying to be rude. Change can be good. God bless you. You know, this should be a lot longer, actually. I shaved it when my wife kicked me out of the house. We separated for a couple of months, and I went down, lived with my parents for a while, went to church with them, freaked them the F out because they had never seen me so on fire for God. I went to their church and prophesied to their entire group of employees. My mom was kind of freaked out. But anyway, I shaved it. This would have been twice as long and twice as big. Actually, maybe I'll find you a picture of it. I had a full beard, like all the way up the sides and down, and huge. It was massive. It was just too unruly. I shaved the whole thing off. And then when I came back and the wife and I got back together and reconciled, she wanted me to grow the beard back. And I wanted to do like a Viking braid, but right now it just is what it is. It grows kind of slow now. It used to grow faster when I was a kid. But it is what it is. I think it's right where God wants it to be. I know I'm not an old man. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. Do you guys feel like you're in your 20s even though you're up there in age? It helps that I do martial arts and running. See, the attacks on youths' freedom on the internet is multifaceted. One being the training of the youth to accept greater control and surveillance in their lives, even when they are adults. Once they are used to the controlled cage, dilution of current oppositions happens simply by the youths becoming adults. Slippery slope. The attack on the youth's freedom on the internet is multifaceted. Very true. One being the training of the youth to accept greater control and surveillance. True. That's everybody. That's just not youths. That's everybody who's got their nose stuck in their phone. Even when they are adults. Once they are used to being controlled, once they are used to the controlled cage, dilution of current opposition happens simply by the youths becoming adults. Okay. All right. Well, we're over the 2-hour mark. Let's wrap this up here. You guys have any questions? I haven't been muted for the last hour, have I? Sorry about that. I'm going to have to edit that out. So like when I make the video I'll probably publish it on Saturday. When I go make the video for Saturday, I'll have to cut out that 6 minutes of me muted. You know what I'll do? I've got this control board here. I can make it like flash a big red light when it's muted. So it will like be in my face that it's muted. I'll do that. I'll write a little program that flashes when it's muted so I know. Do you think in heaven we will get to see a replay of how things played out in the 6,000 years? I do, actually. So somehow God knows the future. And I believe it's because all of creation is mathematical. And maths, you can fast forward and rewind. This is how he knows who's written in the book of life. This is how he knows who's going to do what. This is how he's able to prophesy over, like when Adam and Eve fell, he knew that Adam would eat, he knew that Eve would eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that she would give it to Adam, and then he would have to proclaim the seed of the woman would bruise the head of the serpent. That's why he took her from Adam, because he knew all of these things were going to happen. So if that's possible, I have to believe, if he's willing, now I don't know if this is just something that he'd have to show us, or if there's like a computer, if he gives us that algorithm, or if there's a computer powerful enough that he can, do the fast forwarding. We didn't actually get to talk about Julia McCoy's video on the recent discoveries with quantum computers. Turns out all your cells are quantum qubits. So they have ways of testing qubits when they're making like microchips, like even the chips that have like 100 qubits on them, they have a certain way of testing the viability of a qubit. Turns out they did the tests on human cells. I don't know if it's all human cells or certain cells, but they work like a qubit. So it turns out our bodies are quantum computers. So there you go. Maybe we'll watch that video next week. Let's see, do you think? Let's see. When talking to people. All right, I don't see any new questions in here. We'll call it good there. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you like the video. It helps out it actually helps these get pushed out there. Thank you so much for everybody that does like the videos. If you're new here, make sure you like the video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. You'll get the notifications when we go live. We go live Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Today is the Sabbath. We're going to stop working and go enjoy time with family and God, and I recommend that you do the same thing. It's live in the law so that you can live a righteous life. It's one of the commandments. Did you know that? Keep the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me tonight. God bless you guys. I really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you guys again on Monday. Shalom, shalom.
Our God is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with power, justice, and truth. Our God is a mighty God. Our God is a mighty He stands eternal and strong, with iron and flame, justice forged in the void, light that crushes the dark. Our God is a mighty God. Heavens tear open, worlds tremble at his battle march. Every darkness, every tyrant, every curse will fall when the Messiah rises and announces the final